The previous lesson, we looked at what Bootstrap is and why we use it. So when I first came across Bootstrap, I just thought it was amazing because it really did help me develop websites quicker. And when you are developing a lot of websites, speed is essential and crucial part of your web development process. So being able to create a website quickly and have it nicely styled in a modern design is a really great feature, and this is what Bootstrap is all about. So we also saw how we can bring in a starter template and just right away get started with Bootstrap, bring it in to our web project. Now essentially what Bootstrap is, it's a series of containers, rows, and columns. So what we're looking at here is that basically Bootstrap allows us to better structure our web page. And there's two main containers within Bootstrap. And if you're familiar with website design, this is the way that we design websites is we think about websites as a series of different containers, and then each one of those containers, which is essentially an element with a bunch of content within it. So the way that we take those pieces, we move them around using CSS, and this is where we apply the styling and get the look and feel that we're looking for. And typically when we're designing a website, we've got to at first consider the main container and what it's going to look like. So with Bootstrap, they've already got this set up for us, and they present us with the two options that we can have a main wrapper class called container, and we can have it as a fixed width, or we could have container as a fluid width. So let's open up our editor and take a look at the differences between them. So I'm actually going to get rid of some of this here. So this is just the shim, and these are just comments to help us better understand what's presented within this. So this was originally from that template, but I'm not going to need this right now. So I'm going to just remove some of it out, and let's also the sidebar, and let's create our first container. So typically we have a div, and then within this div is where we've got all of the contents of our site. And the reason that we do it this way is because this gives us a main area where we can set how wide we want our website to be, and if we want certain parts of our website to hang outside of the width, we can always put them outside of this main div wrapper. So usually I'll give it an ID of wrapper, but in this case Bootstrap already has a class for us, so we may not even need to touch it. So all we need to do is specify that this is a container, and I'm also going to add in some separate styling here so that we can see where the borders are of each of the Bootstrap classes, so we can get a better idea of what it looks like. So container, and we'll just give it a border so that we can see the outer part of it, and I'll give it a red border around. So let's open up our editor. Should say our browser, refresh the page, and we see now we've got hello world. So we see that Bootstrap is mobile first thinking, and what mobile first means is that we develop from the mobile and we develop it up. So we're thinking for different size screens, fully responsive, and we see when we resize it, so initially that container has a set width, and as we resize it, it shrinks down, and it's always nicely centered and nicely presented for our web visitors. So this is really important, and so it really does present our content really nicely. And you're probably saying, okay, well, what's the difference between fluid and just the regular container? So the fluid is going to be a full width container, so it's going to span that entire viewport area. So if I was to change this to fluid, or actually what we'll do is we'll have two of them. So we'll have one container and one fluid, so we can better see the difference between the two of them. So they're both going to say hello world inside of them right now. So let's refresh the page. And so the fluid one, we don't actually see where the borders are because it's full 100% width. And we see that the container is contained within a certain width, and only when we shrink it down that we finally get to the full widths. So different breakpoints, and whenever we hit the different breakpoints, we see that the behavior of Bootstrap changes how the content gets presented. And this is the idea of responsive design. So I'm just opening up my I'm using Chrome, and I'm opening up the dev tools within Chrome, and Chrome has this really nice dev tool here where I can change the size of the screen. So I can change it to like an iPhone 5, see how it looks like, and different sizes. So this is pretty good because you can play around with it and you can actually see how your web page will be presented on different size screens. So that's all that I'm doing over here, that I've just opened this up, and any version of Chrome already comes with it. On a Windows, you can right click and you can open up the viewer through Inspect, Control-Shift-I, and also you can go into here and you can go under More Tools and you can open up that same DevTools console. So we see that there is a difference, and the container essentially is the most basic element in Bootstrap, and it's also required for the grid system. And what the grid system is this is what the basic structure of Bootstrap is all about. It's a series of essentially a grid of content, and we place our content where we want to display within the grid, and then we can manipulate that grid using different classes that are available in Bootstrap. So I'm going to show you that in the upcoming lesson, and this is going to be the core of Bootstrap. So once you understand the grid, the rest of Bootstrap is very straightforward and easy to implement. So it's just a matter of preference, adding in classes as needed. So that's coming up in the next lesson.